Hi, and I'm very excited to start coding with you today. So, OpenAI being a very big research lab and a company that writes artificial intelligence algorithms, such as the most commonly known as chatgpt and other AI algorithms like DaVinci models or the DaVinci algorithms. We can use these to query data from the trained models, and then they are able to give us results. And the purpose of this video is to introduce you to a very powerful GUI for Python, that is PyQt6, other than other graphical user interface libraries like Tkinter, like PySimpleGui. So we are going to develop a GUI, a desktop application that will be allowing users to do what? That will be allowing users to ask questions, and then basing on the GPT model they will be getting replies. So PyQt6 has its documentation that supports robust features or widgets. And then strictly, let me go to the point for this purpose of the tutorial along. So as you see, I've already created a folder, and I opened that folder called chatbot into my Visual Studio Code, and then created a virtual environment where I will be installing my different libraries like PyQt6 and also OpenAI, which is for the purpose of the chatbot. So you can do that quickly by opening a new terminal here, and then Python 3 or Python, whatever you're using, venv env. So you execute that, and then you press enter. It will create this virtual environment. I've already done that, so no need to do that again. After that, we are going to activate our virtual environment. That is Ctrl Shift and P. You select interpreter, and then select this one that has a virtual environment. So after doing that, you can open terminal, and then your virtual environment will be activated. So here we are together, and then I want us to first write a program in this format according to the user's view or point of view. That is, we are beginning from the user right away, because I might ask yourself, where do we begin from? We have a graphical user interface where the user will be typing in commands or questions, and then we have the processing that will be done by the chatbot. So let's start by writing the GUI. So a GUI, a graphical user interface, is where it is a composition of windows, basically graphical windows with other features which are always known as widgets, such as buttons, such as labels, and the rest. So let's first create that, and I will write that in main.py file, and then we are going to be using PyQt6 for Python as a library for that graphical user interface, which you can install by saying pip install PyQt, pip install PyQt, and then 6. PyQt has several versions, but the latest is PyQt6, and it has robust features. So I had my virtual environment already, and PyQt6 was already installed. So another thing you're going to install is openai, because we are going to use the openai module. Pip install openai. I've already done that too, so let's just start coding together this application. So from PyQt6 dot widgets, Qt widgets, import. There are several features that we need to first import before using this PyQt library. So we are going to import Q application, which is written like that, and then we are going to import other things like Q main window, and then the rest we shall import them as if we see there is need for importing them. You can as well import everything from PyQt6, but that is unnecessary because it will import everything which you won't use. So having that, I will approach this in a way of OOP, which is object-oriented programming, because every window that you see represents a different class. They might not be as functions, like functional programming might not achieve that very efficiently, because we might write a lot of code. It will be like inventing a new wheel for yourself. So let's create a class. We'll be having two classes. One will be for the graphical user interface, and the rest will be for the chatbot. So we can say what can we call this class of ours? We can maybe say chatbot window. Classes normally are usually written in Pascal case for Python. Chatbot window. This is a class that inherits from Q main window, because it is the entry point of our application, which will create that window outside. So this Q main window is a parent class from PyQt.QtWidgets, and then since it is like that, it must be having the init function, not like that, sorry. The init in Python means whenever you create an instance of this class, whatever code will be written inside init will be executed. So if you wrote a code for creating a new window inside this application, that's what will happen. So before we proceed, there is something about this, because we're using a level of inheritance that begins from Q main window, which has its own superclass or its own init method. So before creating and overriding the init method of the Q main window application, we have to call upon the superclass superden dot. It is written by double underscore then init. So we have to first call upon it before we write any other code, or we declare any other either instance variables or other variables. So let's set the minimum size of our window that we have to create inside here, or even the title. So we can say self dot. It has the self method, the Q main window, and it has several methods inside of them, like set window title, where we can provide a string like maybe my chatbot application, and it has set minimum size, where we can put the minimum width and then the minimum height. So here I might use the minimum width as 700, and then the minimum height as maybe 500. And having done that, the QMain window has the show method, so that you test out yourself if you're doing things right. But then if you're using the OOP approach, you know that it always has a main loop of the application. The main loop, I mean how the program will run from the startup to the end. So before this program runs, or before any Qt application runs, we have to first create an instance of the Qt application, and then we call upon our chatbot. So before defining or creating an instance of the chatbot window, we have to first do what? We have to first instantiate the Qt application. So let me just call it app equals to Qt application. By that, I've created an instance of a Qt application, and then now we can create our chatbot window. I can call it chatbot window, which we defined in here. By doing that, everything that is inside the init function will be executed. So if you do that, then you can use the system, which we shall have to import later on, sys.exit, and then app.execute. So we shall have to use the sys function that enables the execution of the application to end. So you can click on that, and then you add imports. You can go on top right, import sys. Then this application takes some arguments of sys.argv, for which the argument variables mean that this application will allow the user to input and then output something. So that's what it is at the moment, and we can test out things and we see if it is working fine by saying python main.py, and then we can see we have a window so far. So let's start adding things into this main window that we have at the moment. So I want us to have an interface that has just the chat area or the text area where the responses for the user and then for the chatbot will be shown. And I also want us to have an input box where a user will put his or her questions, and also we should have a button that sends that prompt to the chatbot, so that the chatbot can give you replies. So that is very simple, and let's start writing that right away. If we start with self means that we want this to be an instance variable for this class, so that it can be accessed by other methods outside this init definition or declaration. So that's why I put self, and then I can name anything like chat area is equal to this PyQt has something like Q, it is called Q text area, Q text edit, and we can try to import it here, and before we use it, Q text edit, we can instantiate that variable here, and then chat area, we want us to give the spacing or the amount of height and width that this chat area will be having, dot set geometry, and then this geometry has, we shall put the pixels relative to the horizontal axis. The space may be between the window and also our widget that we are trying to write here, and also we put the space between. It's like the padding for this widget. So we shall start with we can put the padding of maybe 15 pixels. It is always in terms of pixels, and also 15 maybe pixels for vertical, and what else will be, it will be the width and then the height of this widget. So we shall use, since we have the full width of 700, we can utilize the 600, and then we can utilize the 354 for the height. Having done that, we can then try to inspect if our app is doing as expected. Right now it is not yet there because we haven't associated it to self. The first self means that it is an instance of, it's an instance variable, and then the second self is associate this chat area with our QMain window. So let's try to run it again, and we can see that it's there, but we can make it read only so that it doesn't have a cursor blinking. Self.chat area.set read only. So we can set read only, then it needs a parameter, a boolean value, either true or false. So we can make it true, and then we see that now there is no cursor blinking inside it. So right now we have the text area, and something else we need should be maybe the text input or the text box. Right now let's call it the text box, where the user will type in something. So the same approach, self.text, maybe text box, that is the name you can give to that, and these text boxes, PyQt has something they call QLine edit, and we can import that to QLine edit. So far we create an instance of the QLine edit, and then we are again setting the geometry, and the geometry, we have the padding relative to the vertical, then the padding relative to the horizontal. So we can use the same for the vertical. Then another thing will be the padding, that will be the space between the top of the application up to this text box. So we have already used the 350 as the height of the other text area, meaning there is that 350, there is also 15, which is the padding. So we also have to add another 15. We can make these ones tend to be easily calculative. So it becomes 10 as the padding on top, then we add 350, it becomes 360, and then we need to add another padding between, another space between this text box and the chat area, so it becomes 350 plus 10, which is 360, and then we can put now 370. So let it cover the same horizontal length, and maybe it can cover 40 for the vertical height. So if we try this, we should also associate it with the main window with self, and then we test out our things. Trading comma not allowed. Alright, that is in line 2. So we can see that right now it is still up, and let's see how that is possible. So we have 15, then we have 370, which means the space between the top and also where this text box is. We also have this as the horizontal length, and this as the vertical height. Alright, so we just said self.set geometry, not self.textbox.set geometry. So that was a quick typo. So you can see that we can type in something here, and let's make this one 10 to be equal to the other one, and then we have something else like a button that we have to put in our area. So let's quickly add a button dot maybe let me just call it button simply equal to Q push button. Q push button is we can also import it from here for the purposes of making the code easily readable. Let me just put a backslash here, and I put the rest of the statements down. I can do it here, then I put this slash, and then I call the Q push button. So the Q push button, we make an instance of it, and we also put the geometry for it, set geometry, and then we put, let's give the same padding from the vertical line up to the widget of this application, and then of this up to this specific widget, and then we calculate. It should be at the same height. Let it be at the same height, then directly in front of our text box. So we can just give 370 the way it is, and then so let's just vary this distance, because it is the distance from here up to, so we have this 10 and then this width, so it means it is 610, and the push button will start from 610 onwards. So we can make this one as we can make it as 620, and then so the width of this can be just 100, but then it might exceed the width that we have here, so let's just make this 750, the whole width of the application, and then this can be effective and it can have the same height. So let me just first run this, and I'm sure we didn't associate it to self. So we can see that it is here as a push button. We can add text in it. So these values I'm putting here, let me just first give a deep explanation about them if you're still confused about them. So 10 is this width, then another 10 is this height. 600 stands for the width of this widget, and then 350 stands for the height of this widget. Likewise, that's why before adding another widget, I set that it should have the first one as 10, then I calculate from here up to down, and then I also add another spacing. I give it that value, then the third becomes the width of that specific widget, and the fourth becomes the height of it. So that's what I'd be meaning. The push button, it can have let it have some parameter as send, so right now you can see it has this send, and I think I hope we've finished the graphical user interface that we need, and right now we can start writing another class for the chatbot processing. Alright, so we can write the class in this application, or we can put it somewhere else, and I think I have a feeling that we put it somewhere else for the purposes of the code remaining very simple and you can quickly read through the code. So let's create another class. This looks like an interface, then this looks like processing. I can call this front end and this one back end, or I can call it simply chatbot.py, and then I will have to import openai, because that's where we shall have to write our code processing. OpenAI, then we have to get an OpenAI key. So right now let's keep things simple, and then we import OpenAI, and then we write another class of maybe the chatbot itself, which is not taking anything like widgets of this. You know, here we had a class, but it took one of the widgets of this class. But right now let's just write the processing for the chatbot, and it has OpenAI.API key. OpenAI.API key. API key is it is one of the associated functions of OpenAI API. OpenAI key that takes in the key gotten from the API platform. And let me show you how we can get those keys, or how we can get that key. So we are to open the openai.com, and then we log in. Then we select API. So it's not the ChatGPT this time around, but it's the platform.openai.com, and then we select this and get to API keys, and we can create another API key that we are going to use. These are my previous API keys I used, and right now let's say chatbot, and then we create another API key which we can copy and then be able to use. So in your case, if you try to use an API key and it doesn't work out, check your usage. It might be out or expired. So you can see that mine, I've used it. I've used my space or my limit up to this extent, and it's generally free, or if you need a paid plan you can go for that. But then I still have some grants. If you don't have them, create another account and then you get them, or if you want to pay for it, still it can work out. So I have that API key that I've copied, I paste it in here, and then by the way, it should be under the init, because this API key is needed in the initial creation of this processing. So that's why I will say define init, and then I get this and I dump it inside there, and that's all that we have to write inside this init function. And right now let's write another function that gives us response according to what the user has typed in, and let me just define that function as get response, which will take in the self, all methods, all instance methods of the class take in the self parameter, and then I will create a response equivalent to openai.completion.create. First, follow along with me, then I will explain to you this code. We shall create an engine. So the create method of the completion has these parameters that we should define inside. So the engine, we shall use DaVinci. Let's use OpenAI DaVinci's algorithms, because it's one of the engines that we can utilize as in text-davinci 003, and then we define another parameter of this called prompt, which the user will type in, and that will be the user input, which we can define inside here. And then we can use max tokens. These are the number of words that that the chatbot can maximally give you, and at maximum it is usually 4080, but we can use 3000 words. I'm using commas here, and then I will use temperature as temperature ranges from 0 up to 1, and temperature means the accuracy and then the divisiveness of the text that the chatbot is giving you. So if you want to sacrifice one of them, you can use strictly 1, or you sacrifice the other and use 0, but we want to balance the two and say 0.5, so that the model is giving us both accurate results and then divisive results. So we get that response dot the choices, and then by the choices, the first choice dot text, we are extracting that text out of the given response from the chatbot, and then later on we shall return a response. We can test out this specific code without having to first import it from the main loop. So if you want to test code from this side, we can say if name is equal to main, if the name of the application is equal to main, then we can create an instance of the chatbot is equaling to chatbot, and then we can say response is equaling to chatbot dot get response, and then we supply one string as the user input. Maybe let's just greet the chatbot as hello, and then we print out the response. If we try to print out the response, let's run this chatbot.py instead of main.py. So let's see what this is telling us, that the model text-davinci does not exist. It doesn't exist for real. It is 003, not 0003. Sorry about that. So here it gives us the response. You can see, hi there, how can I help you? So that is the GPT replying, and then we have to do something like we get to the main loop and then be able to connect our chatbot to the processing. So where do we begin from? We see that the user first clicks the button and then supplies the text or whatever he wants to supply to the chatbot. That's where we begin from the user's point of view, and then we shall check if that button is clicked, and then we do some processing. So we shall say self.button.clicked, then if clicked, let's connect it to a certain function that will say maybe send message, and then we shall define this send message outside the scope of the init, because it is a different method. So let's just define send message somewhere, and this, it will just right now let's self.button.clicked, and then send message. So send message is not defined yet here, but then we can make it an instance method by applying a self so that it is accessible everywhere. So what are we aiming at doing with self? We're aiming at correcting the user input, right, which is input from the text box. So let's just correct it as user input is equaling to the self dot text box dot text. Maybe let's also strip what if he put some space, do some kind of processing a little bit, and then we have to append this user input to the what? To the chat area. So self dot chat area dot append, we are appending maybe a string that says is formatted and says maybe me as a person who is typing, then the user input. If that is the case and it has taken it, let's first run our program and see what it does. Right now let's run main.py and we type in hello, so we can see that me, hello, and then we'll be able to send. At this point, that's where we create an instance of our chatbot processing, but then we shouldn't create it inside this message, because at every call of a function you can't be instantiating any object of the chatbot. So we can do it from this side in the init method and say chatbot is equaling to chatbot, and chatbot is what is imported from chatbot, from this function import chatbot. It is actually written like that, and I have to correct it here. So after instantiating this, we make it accessible everywhere by saying self, and right now we can get the response. First of all, response is equaling to chatbot. Let's use self dot chatbot, like we said, dot get response. The response will be of this user input. It will be this user input, and then we shall append this response to the chat area. So let's say self dot chat area dot append. We also do the same thing like we did. Then we say right now maybe the chatbot, then we give it the response. So having done that, we can first run our program and see how it behaves. And on sending, the chatbot replies, "Hi there, how can I help you?" And that's what it returns. So right now we can confirm that our program has ended from here, but then we have to clear the input that the user inputs. So let's just say self dot text input or dot text box dot clear so we can ask hey chat, hey, how many planets are in this universe or group, and then on sending it tells us that this is the reply. By the way it is showing, it is not yet a prompt thing, so we can use HTML to do the way how it looks. So let's say this will be a paragraph that has style equaling to maybe color of the text will be maybe hash. Let me use the single quotes because right outside I use it double quotes. The color of this will be hash. Let me use 333 and then the background color I use hash in 9. So let's try out this and see if it is really a paragraph, but we have to first close it inside there, and we say how write for me an application letter for maybe to teach in a secondary school. And then the reason why it delays is that there is some threading that we can perform, since the chatbot first waits for, we can see that really this is the text of the chatbot with that HTML applied, but we can then see that it first waits for some seconds, where we can use threading in Python to first handle one task at a moment, even if it is waiting for another task to execute. So let's first ask, what is the importance of in Python so let me see where it started from. This is just the what? This is just the styling of this graphical user interface, but I hope it makes sense and you can make it better. So that is what I wanted to share with you today, and thanks for following along. I can leave the code snippets within this link, or if it is easy to follow along, that's fine. Then I'll talk to you later. Thanks and bye.